Welcome to the Work Awesome Podcast. This is episode 7. Today we're talking about LinkedIn and specifically what your profile should look like. This is actually one of 3 episodes that we have coming up about LinkedIn. So if you're interested in learning about LinkedIn, maybe improving your profile, learning how valuable connections are on the platform, this is definitely where you want to be for the next few weeks. You may also notice that this is the first episode that we're releasing on Tuesday. From now on, we will be releasing the Work Awesome podcast on Tuesday. This week, it just happened to work out because Monday was a federal holiday. It didn't make sense for us to release it on Monday, so we shifted it to Tuesday. And from here on out, the podcast will now be released on Tuesday. An easy way to keep up with the Work Awesome podcast is by signing up for our newsletter. The newsletter actually goes out every Tuesday morning and has all of the information pertaining to the week for Work Awesome Podcast. It has the newest episode on YouTube, as well as links to get to our Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and other podcasting platforms so that you can choose which platform you want to listen to the podcast on. As well as those links, it has articles that are related to the topic that we're discussing that week. Those get posted to Medium. Besides that, I really hope you enjoy this episode. Again, this is one of 3 episodes we have about LinkedIn. I think these episodes are really valuable because LinkedIn is rapidly growing and it helps us make connections in our professional lives. If you're interested, please stick around. We do put a recruiting twist on it with insights from Sarah. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome to the Work Awesome Podcast. This is the 7th episode. Today we're talking about what your LinkedIn profile should look like. And I have joining me Lindsay, Sarah, and Elise. In this episode, like I said, we're talking about what your profile should look like. LinkedIn is the largest online platform to connect with other business professionals. I think it goes without saying that putting your best virtual foot forward on LinkedIn can open a lot of doors for you along your career journey. This episode will be a deep dive on tips to enhance your profile. We'll cover what hiring managers are looking for online and what helps prospective employees stand out on the platform. So let's start with the icebreaker like we normally do. This week it is, would you rather be able to talk with animals or speak all foreign languages? And whoever wants to jump in and answer first, go for it. Anybody?
I'll jump in. Mine would be all foreign languages. I mean, I would love to communicate with my dogs. That'd be cool. But I also love to travel, and that is one of the hindrances when you're in a foreign country is not necessarily understanding the language. So that's my choice.
I would agree with Lindsay. First of all, I don't actually want to know what my animals think of me. They see everything. But secondly, I think that we could also help a lot of people if there weren't communication barriers. Like when you do travel to other places, we could do more service work and connect with other human beings in a way that is so hard to do when there's that language barrier.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about like that aspect of it. My answer is also foreign language. I can talk more about that after Sarah gives her answer.
Oh, that's fine. I was thinking foreign languages as well. I already actually feel like I have a good repertoire with my pets. They seem to communicate very well with me, and it seems to work. So maybe I'm on the same boat that Elise is. Maybe a little the level of communication we have now is probably good. And I think it would be really exciting to be able to communicate with pretty much anyone and to understand a bit about their culture as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think on the flip side of this, I think it would be interesting to, like, if the world was split up into 2 categories, you could either talk to animals or talk all languages, and then you would have the people that were like hearing what all the animals see. That would be interesting. Maybe a podcast of its own. All right, so let's jump into today's topic of the LinkedIn profile. I don't know if you guys have the newest version of the app, but just a couple of days ago, they released LinkedIn stories. So now you can actually do a lot like Instagram and Facebook. You can do stories on your phone on LinkedIn, which is really cool. And I think it'll change how the platform is used a little bit too, and help people get insight into who you're connecting with. But going into the profile now, let's start with pictures. So the importance of like having a professional headshot, and then also that cover photo area. So do you think, I guess, what is your opinion if you see someone's profile and it's not like a professional style headshot, if it's more of like just something they took on their phone at the beach or something like that? What are your thoughts on that section?
It makes me personally think that the candidate may be a little green because they are not presenting themselves in a professional manner from that photo. It's so easy with today's technology to take a business, casual photo against a plain kind of backdrop. There's really no excuse not to have a good photo up, in my opinion.
I would have to agree with that. I think that a lot of people just don't understand LinkedIn and that it is really a business-based website. So you can get those individuals with their pets in their pictures or their significant others in their pictures, and that's really not what the platform is for.
Right.
I would agree. I think you also have to look at what people are using LinkedIn for. If you're using it if you're in the market for a new position, then really putting your best foot forward in every aspect of your profile is your best bet.
Yeah, and I think there's still, with headshots even, there's still some room like to show off your personality, especially if you can find like a background that kind of tells a little bit of who you are. It doesn't have to be a solid background. It could be on a pattern. It could be out and about. But yeah, with iPhones and Android phones now having cameras that are pretty much just as good as a handheld camera, it doesn't make sense not to have a professional headshot up there. What about the cover photo? I think that's a great place to, again, showcase kind of who you are a little bit more about your personality. Is there anything that helps people stand out in that section? Right now, mine is the Work Awesome podcast. It's one of the screenshots from the intro. Always pushing the podcast now that we're getting it going.
In that case, Ian, you've used your LinkedIn platform to kind of showcase some of your actual work that you've created.
Right.
I guess it's a good opportunity to sell how some of your skills if you can make that applicable.
Right, especially so if you're like a graphic designer or a videographer, it's a great place to showcase the skills that you use and that you're hoping to use in your job.
Or even certain industries. If you're like in the pet insurance industry, maybe that's where you have your photo with your
right.
dogs or something like that.
I was just thinking that's a great idea. I want to update my cover photo to maybe a snapshot of a newsletter that I've created or a flyer that I've created or something like that to really showcase your work. That's an excellent thought.
Well, that is a great idea. I think any place that you can kind of showcase it's an opportunity to show your skills and what you're interested in doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the next part on profiles is the kind of objective statement. So that's it's usually about 2 lines long. I've heard some differing opinions about this section. Some people think it's a really great place to say I'm looking for a job and this is the type of work I'm looking for. It does show up everywhere on LinkedIn. And this is probably one of the places, if I were to guess, that the recruiter side of LinkedIn pulls from to help recruiters find potential candidates. Is that correct?
So you can, in your profile, in your LinkedIn profile, you can indicate there are a couple different places where or choices that you can say, you're not really looking, you're open to work, or that you're like really, really looking. I think there are 3 or 4 different options. So when recruiters are looking for people, then they can kind of, you're more likely to show up. So that's what I would say. I don't necessarily look at that statement. I'm more interested in looking through the qualifications. So that is the area that is more important to me. But it does impact how you select to kind of qualify your profile, whether you're looking, whether you are not actively looking, that impacts how you will come up in searches, essentially.
You can use this title as almost this section as almost your headline to catch your audience as well. So this is your best, the first opportunity to kind of pitch who you are. And you can do that with so I think it's better to steer away from generics here and kind of think of it. What would you do if you were selling yourself just like a newspaper story or article where you're trying to catch the reader? Be creative here.
Yeah, and it's nice that it like obviously it's online, so you can change it whenever you want. It's nothing you have to live with forever. So if there's something that you're trying to push right at that very moment, like you're trying to find a new job, or you have a podcast called the Work Awesome Podcast that you're trying to advertise for, you can put it in that headline so everybody can see it. It also is a good place for, again, to show your personality a little bit. You can be goofy. You can change up the words. It's a great place if you're like a wordsmith or a copywriter. Great place to show off your skills there too. Let's see. So I think everyone's pages are a little bit different as far as customization go. My page doesn't have everything that you can add, but I know you can add a resume. Does that help you at all, Sarah?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that would be the place that I would probably, if you're looking for a position, that would be the place that I would put a little extra time. And I would actually make sure that you're keeping it up to date, that you have how long you've worked at places. Sometimes if you're using LinkedIn to apply for jobs, that resume is what is pulled into the applicant tracking system for the company that you want to work for. So making sure that is up to date and clean and neat is very important, and that's how we find candidates. So if I'm looking for someone who has a specific skill, or maybe I'm looking for someone who has really good Adobe InDesign skills. So I might use that as a search word or as one of the search words in my search to find candidates. So if that's not in your resume, then you're probably not going to come up in my search. So making sure that you're including the things that you're really good at and that you're qualified in is pretty important in that resume, and keeping it up to date if you're, in fact, using LinkedIn to try to find a job. Yeah, and we've talked about that before, the importance of making sure that your resume is up to date on all of the platforms online, on all of the platforms, not just a few of them. Definitely, if you're uploading your resume to Indeed and Glassdoor and LinkedIn, you need to update all of them at the same time. Right, and if I'm looking for candidates that are, that need an education in order to qualify, or a certain type of degree, then having that in there as well is pretty important too.
Yeah. Also,
just a side note, when you are uploading resumes to various locations, I think it's pretty important that you use a PDF or something that's uneditable, because when it feeds over from our side, it sometimes comes in all disformatted because it wasn't a PDF.
Yeah.
Good point.
And I just wanted to point out that your resume should match the information that you have on LinkedIn. Make sure your resume is up to date. If your resume is three jobs behind, and then your actual profile says otherwise, that obviously isn't going to look good to recruiters.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Very true.
And also, if you're looking for a specific job, tailoring that resume, and as I've already pointed out, all of this is online, so it's super easy to customize. When you're looking for a specific job, you can even tailor your LinkedIn page to match the job that you're looking for. The next section on my page is the About page. So again, that's a great place to kind of talk about you and talk about what you're looking for. I assume, again, that this is where some of those keywords get pulled out of for the recruiter side of it and help you stand out there. Any tips for the About section?
I think the About section should be professional, but also have a touch of personal to it, interest, who maybe a little bit of who you are outside of work. what your passions are. And things like that.
Definitely agree. It could also expand on that first objective statement at the top too. So if you say, mine says digital creator, maybe I would give an example of some of the things that I've made in the past and how I've kind of fit into that role.
And I would just to kind of add on to Lindsay's thought, yes, be playful. This is, you want to show off your personality, but also it still is a professional platform. So just watch your usage of grammar and spelling and all that good stuff. Try to avoid those LOLs and some things that just aren't really good for professional print.
Yes. The next section on here is actually the activity section. I do want to talk about activity just a little bit. So this is a section that you cannot hide on LinkedIn. It's not customizable. It's a direct feed of the what you're doing on the platform. It is important to be active, especially if you're looking for a position. And having this feed allows recruiters, allows hiring managers to look at your profile, see the type of activity that you're engaging with, and really get a sense of a little bit of who you are as a person by the type of content that you're engaging with. That was all an assumption, of course. Is that correct, Sarah?
I think so. I mean, I don't, to be honest, I'm really focusing mostly on the experience and the resume portion. But it can, especially if you're in sync with some of the things that the company is in sync with, it can definitely reflect kind of a little bit of your, what you're following professionally, what you're interested, career growth, that kind of thing too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say on that same note, as it is tracking your activity, be aware of what you're searching and who you're following and what articles you're reading, because it's being tracked.
Absolutely. And then we get down to that experience section that Sarah has been referencing. So here's where you put all of your job information, where you've worked in the past, where you're currently working. Tips on this section, obviously, the more you can fill out, I think is probably better. But when you get onto someone's page, what do you expect to see, I guess, would be my question there.
So I expect to see what, obviously where they've worked, how long they've worked there. I'm kind of looking for career progression as well. How long people have, someone has stayed there, what they've done while they're there. Mainly the main bullets. I don't need to see every single thing, because I can a lot of times get a pretty good idea from the job title and just a few high level things that they're doing. But yeah, making sure, kind of seeing what they're proficient in. Are they proficient? What tools? Do they have certifications? Do they have degrees? All of that is very important. And as I keep mentioning, that's what is going to bring that candidate up when we're creating a search in LinkedIn Recruiter.
Sarah, how far back would you say that experience needs to go? Like, do I need to put that I waited tables in high school at Outback, or is that, where do you think you should draw the line in experience?
That's a great question, because I know, when you're talking about creating a resume, a lot of times people say, keep it to a certain length of pages. And I can only speak from the government contractor standpoint. Waiting tables is not necessarily, if you have, and I guess I should caveat this with also, it depends on where you are in your career. Like Lindsay, I probably don't need to see, because you're pretty far along in your career. I don't really need to see that you waited tables at one point, because you're going to already qualify for the positions that I need you to qualify for. And that's not necessarily going to help qualify you for that. Now, if you were applying for an internship and this was your first real job, then I'd be like, okay, that's great. She's had some work experience before. So, and she worked there for 3 years. That's great. They must have loved her if they kept her that long. So those are kind of some things that I would keep in mind. That being said, if you started out as a junior analyst, and that was 20 years ago, that might help you qualify for a senior analyst or the management level position. And I need to see the 20 years of experience in order to do that in some cases. So I hope that answered that question. But it is really good to have any relevant experience included there that could show progression and that would show the years that you've had working in a field.
So Sarah gave the classic. That's the classic HR answer. It depends.
It depends. Yeah, absolutely.
What about the amount of detail they put into like past positions? Are you looking at them to include like all their roles and responsibilities here, or is it more just like a general overview and you can get to that during like the interview? Or
shouldn't that really be in your resume?
Pardon?
Shouldn't that really be in your resume?
Yeah.
So you're really just looking for like positions and career. What did you call it? Go ahead.
Yeah. So in the resume, you should really have anything that you've done that in that job that would have any significance and that would come up in a search, anything like that. So that's kind of what I would say. Now, on the same front, I don't think that there would be anything necessarily wrong with saying that you had been a waitress, 20 years ago, or you had been, even if it wasn't related and it maybe that wasn't going to, qualify you for a different position. I don't think there would be anything wrong necessarily with that.
Hey, Sarah, what about, can you talk a little bit about times when it would be appropriate to put some maybe personal experience in that area or on your resume?
So are you talking about
like stay-at-home mom or volunteer work or something like that, if you have a gap of employment?
So I think that it's good to include volunteer work if it's given you relevant experience, especially. I don't think there's anything wrong with including volunteer work because you are contributing, you are gaining skills. I've seen different ways that people have indicated a career, or like a time when maybe they put their career on pause. And I think that is definitely dependent on, the necessity of that is dependent on, how long, and it can be done well in several different ways. I don't think that if you have the qualifications for a position and you've kept yourself relevant and current, I don't think that that's generally a problem.
Okay.
So there's actually just one more section that I want to get to. There is the education section, but I think that's pretty self-explanatory and probably everybody should fill that out if you are on LinkedIn. The last section I do want to point out though is skills and endorsements. So this is where people can kind of give you personal references. People can say that you're good at social media marketing or you're good at Microsoft Office. Again, these are personal references. Do you think those are valuable on the page for you to look at as a recruiter or hiring manager?
I don't think it hurts to have them, but I don't think that it's a deal breaker if you don't.
Okay.
That's kind of the way I look at it, especially if it's, if someone has something really nice to say about your reliability, then it's a great thing. But I don't know that you're going to necessarily that would be that would check the block of references essentially.
Right.
And as far as this section goes, ask people for those. There's a button where you could, hey, can you endorse me for this marketing skill that you know that I have? Can you endorse me for that? Because like Sarah says, it doesn't hurt to have it, and you have to be your own biggest fan and, ask people to endorse you on those qualities that you have.
Absolutely. I do think it's a good place to show off your skills because if you're doing a bunch of stuff, for me, I realized that there was a show more button on here and I'm a little embarrassed of how much stuff I have on here, but it's all relevant to the type of work that I do, but it would never fit on a resume. So I do think if you have this laundry list of skills, this is a great place to show those off.
So, Ian, I apologize, but I have to leave because I'm going to be late for an interview.
Perfect timing, because I was just about to wrap it up.
It's never good for a recruiter to be late for an interview. So I thank you so much for having me, and I will see you soon.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. So just to wrap it up, do you guys have any last minute tips or ideas for LinkedIn and profile and a person's profile?
I would just say keep it up to date all the time, not just when you're looking for a job necessarily. Know that is your living, breathing resume in the digital age that we live in.
Yeah. And there are some websites and applications where you could log in with LinkedIn and it'll fill it out based on the information you have there. So if you're looking to make applying for jobs easier, this could be a solution for you as well.
I would just add, don't forget, it's a really robust tool. It's not just for looking for jobs. There's some amazing networking. You can really use it to learn what other companies are doing and maybe implement some of those ideas in your own company. See how I've seen how some of my different connections are volunteering in the community. So it's a tool beyond just looking for jobs. It's such a rich networking tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you guys very much for joining me today. On the next episode, we are diving into the entire platform of LinkedIn and talking about how it can help grow your career. I'm excited for that episode. And I think that's all we have for today. So again, thank you guys, and I'll see everybody next time.
Thanks, Ian.
All right. So what do you guys think? This, by the way, is my microphone situation right now. What do you guys think of the podcast? This episode had a lot of great detail about LinkedIn, different ways that you can help your profile and help really stand out to recruiters. If you are interested in learning more about what you can do for LinkedIn in the next couple of weeks, we have a couple more episodes focused on LinkedIn. And then after that, we'll be finished with our personal branding segment of the podcast for now and jump into some other topics. I really appreciate all of the support that you have been giving. Again, if you're interested in getting information about the Work Awesome podcast every week, you can sign up for our newsletter by going to the link in the description. It's also at the top of our LinkedIn and Facebook pages. You just have to click the button, put your email address in there, and you'll be on the list to receive updates on what's happening with Work Awesome. Thank you again for all your support, and I'll see you next week. The Work Awesome podcast is brought to you by Avian. Avian is a 49% employee-owned company founded by retired U.S. Navy test pilots who believe passion and talent are the right traits to get the job done. Avian operates in a culture that thrives on innovation, creativity, and the entrepreneurial spirit. Instead of offering services through mere business transactions, Avian is redefining the government services industry by creating meaningful experiences and connecting talented people with important work. The passion that Avian's employees have for its work builds better partnerships for the future, and Avian's unique talents create real solutions. At Avian, we move fast, take risks, and don't settle for the status quo. To learn more, visit Avian's website at avian.com. That's AVIAN.com.